Hi everyone, it's Chad Taylor from the Get Up and Go show, backstage at the State Theater here in downtown Minneapolis, with one of my legends, icons. I think I've waited 20 years to sit down and chat with you, so it's quite an honor to be here with Mike Love from the Beach
Sorry about the procrastination.
Boys.
It's been a while.
I
All
was
right.
lucky enough to have you on when you guys did the 50th anniversary tour. You
Oh,
called
okay.
into the show, but
Yes.
you were gracious enough to say next time that you were in the area that we could sit down and chat. And
Yeah.
man of his word. And um, what I'm really excited about, finally, you're able to tell your story. A lot
Yes.
of us big fans have been waiting to hear your story. And so much has been written about the Beach Boys over the years. I've probably read every book,
Yeah.
but I am excited to read this because this comes from the horse's mouth.
Exactly. And the thing is, there have been so many mischaracterizations or outright falsehoods that have been written by people who weren't even there at the time. So the one thing that you get from my book is I was there from since childhood. My cousin Brian and I are about a year apart, and we wrote tons of hit songs together. And he decided to leave the Beach Boys touring group. So we had effectively two groups: a recording group and a touring group. And so I've been in the touring group part uh, for all my adult life, for 55 years now. So I can honestly say that I was the one person who was there from the beginning, from before the Beach Boys started, when we were just a group of family members singing harmony together. So what I have to say in the book may not conform. It might contradict a lot of the things
Oh,
that have been
sure.
said about me or said about situations with respect to the Beach Boys or the creation of the music. But it's from my point of view, from my experience, and I tell it like it is. Some things are not wonderful to talk about, like the death of, my cousins or my sister or my loved ones, grandparents, parents. And those are always hard for anybody
Sure.
in any family. And I think people understand that. So I did an audio recording of the book where for 3.5 days at my home studio on Lake Tahoe, I sat and recorded. I read the book out. So it's an audio recording. And it
Did you have to
was,
start and stop because of getting emotional?
yeah, sometimes I could barely read it, but I think it has the mood and the feeling of and grasp what how it felt. You know,
A lot of fans like myself will wonder why did it take so long? Because it's ironic. Your book comes out next month, and then Brian's comes out the month after that. Why did it take so long for you to want to tell your side of things?
well, a couple of reasons. One is when false things are said about me, I know what I did and what I didn't do, and if I did something worthy of criticism, I would own up to it. But if something's just an outright lie or just a mischaracterization or falsehood or doesn't describe what really happened, I know what happened. So for a large part of my life, I've said, well, that's okay by me. I know I wrote the words to Surfing USA. I
Right.
wasn't credited for it. I knew I wrote every word of California Girls. Wasn't given the credit for it. I wrote I Get Around and Be True to Your School. Wasn't given the credit for it. Those are hurtful things because this is with my cousin, my first cousin, who I was really close with and good friends with. And yet, between his father, my Uncle Murray, and himself, Brian, with all his problems and stuff, um, those are not fun things to discuss. But
Well,
I,
especially
but
when
I,
you're talking family. It's
yes,
different. You're a
exactly.
band and you're a family.
And because you're a family, you just don't think, well, my uncle's gonna, screw me.
Right.
You mean literally? As in disenfranchise me and take my credit and legacy away and stuff. So
Which
you
thankfully
don't.
it's back though, right? Thankfully
Well,
through the courts it finally is.
in large part, on a lot of the songs that I co-wrote, yes, but not all of them. So there's some open-ended things there, and it's too bad because it is, as you point out, family. I mean, I was very close to Brian when we went on it's in the book when we were allowed to bring a friend along on our senior trip in high school. I invited Brian to go with me, and we used to go to football games together. I'd bring him to a Dorsey High, which is where I went, football game at Fremont High School, and it was incredible. Fremont had a conga line, which was very intimidating, like 20 guys on congas and stuff. And in addition to cheerleaders, they had a conga line. It was gnarly. So we did all kinds of things with the cousins, and primarily Dennis, my cousin Dennis and I would go fishing together, or we'd go to the beach and we'd hang out. And he and I talked about surfing, and he went back to the house and the Wilson's house, said to Brian, "Hey, we got to do a song about surfing." So I got together with Brian. We created a song. That was our first song we wrote together, and the first song that came out on the radio together in 1961 in the fall. So there's a lot of things like that, anecdotes about how things actually evolved.
How were you able to get through that pain and then reunite together? Because I'm half Italian, and that
Yeah.
Italian side makes me stubborn. Where once somebody, especially
Yeah.
to the degree that you were screwed. I mean, that's the only
Yeah.
word to use.
Yeah.
How do you find the peace within yourself to say, okay, let's get back together? You guys were just out on a 50th anniversary tour. After all that has happened,
Well, here's the thing about that's a very insightful question, because what happens is you're right. You when you get shafted by a relative or a friend or anybody, it makes you a bit concerned or shy, or not even want to deal with it anymore. But in the case of Brian, he called me to ask to try and rectify the situation before having to go to court. But he was disallowed. He was in a conservatorship, meaning because of Brian's mental incompetence or inability to take care of himself financially or medically or otherwise, he was in what they call a conservatorship, meaning there was an attorney who made the decisions of what he could and could not do. And the attorney thought that since this all happened 20 years before that time, that the statute of limitations, meaning there's a certain amount of time you have in which to legally, they have rules that they've developed over the years in the legal business. If you haven't brought forth your claim within a certain amount of time, then your claim is gone. But there are exceptions to that because of mental incompetence or fraud. And in Brian's case, in the situation that I found myself in, both applied.
sure.
There was fraud by an attorney that handled the Beach Boys, but they also handled the people who bought our publishing that my Uncle Murray sold for a nominal amount of money compared to what it's
Wasn't it
worth.
like 250,000?
No, 750,
Oh.
but 700,000, but still it's worth several million.
I
So,
can't even imagine.
so yeah, I mean, so my uncle didn't do any favors to his sons, nor his nephew, or our children and grandchildren.
As fans, we look at it as spiteful because he was fired as the manager. I mean, that's how
True.
we look at it as.
It is true. He has a vendetta against me, and he didn't do so nice for his sons either. So yeah, it's a tragedy, really, in a way. But the good part is, we'll go out on stage and people will love what we do. They don't know about the background of what song was written by whom and whatever. They just know that they like the music.
Well, you're talking to,
Yeah.
I just turned 40 in January.
Mm-hmm.
The earliest records that I would ride my bike to the Ben Franklin Union Grove to buy were Beach Boy albums.
Oh, that's
my
great.
mother. My daughter now, who's 10, I also perform in a Beach Boy tribute band.
Oh, wow.
And she comes to my shows and she can sing every word. I mean, God only
Oh,
knows it's her
that's-
favorite song.
Oh, yeah.
So you have just generation after generation. You're right. The fans that come to see your show, come to see the tribute shows, or just listen to music on the radio or on the CD, they don't know all the
Exactly.
hell that you guys have been through
Exactly.
to keep that legacy going.
And the real story about the Beach Boys music is its worldwide appeal and multi-generational appeal.
Mm-hmm.
People should never lose sight of that. I don't. Every night I get it, reinforced just how fantastic a thing it is, what a blessing it is to be able to do something that was a family hobby.
You never
Making
dreamed your
music
wildest
together.
dreams when you guys created Surf, and that in 2016 you'd be selling out the State Theater in Minneapolis. I can't even imagine that went through your mind.
No, I didn't. Well, we had 7,000 people come to see us in Aurora, outside of Chicago, on Friday night, and then last night we were up in Duluth.
There aren't bands on the radio today that can even get a fraction of that audience.
Well, it's a special thing. We,
Yeah.
between all the TV shows like Full House that have
Yeah.
played our music, and we get recognized by children. And when you said your daughter's 10, it reminded me of a girl who was 10 years old when I asked her, this is 3 years ago. We were in Kentucky somewhere. And I said, what's your favorite Beach Boys song? She said, 409. Well, that was recorded in 1962, about 40 years before she was born. So that's miraculous,
That's
you know?
unbelievable. I was
Yeah,
asking my mom on the drive up. I said, "Do you remember what year is the last time you saw the Beach Boys?" I think she said '67.
right.
That's what we were talking about. It's just amazing
The
how
year
long
after
we've
Good
come.
Vibrations went to #1,
Yes,
which is,
which yeah, is amazing. I know we're getting close on time. I want to let people know the book is out next month. The pre-order
yes,
though is available right now.
absolutely. On MikeLove.com or thebeachboys.com. And yeah, and you can pre-order them from Amazon, Barnes and Noble, whoever.
I'm excited. The publisher promised me to get it before Street Day. I can't
Oh
wait to
yeah,
read it.
I hope they do.
You're also active on social media, so fans can follow you on Twitter. You're on Facebook. You're on the whole nine. So
Yeah, well, yeah, I'm pretty bad on Facebook because I'll go for days at a time without posting anything. Then I'll post things for a few days. I'm from a different generation,
oh, of course, we
But
get
I
used
am
to it.
I am going to do a Facebook Live thing with John Stamos, which ought to be very cool. I mean, like
Yeah,
a jillion people are going to be able to. He's going to interview me about the book,
cool.
which is pretty nice.
As we're saying goodbye, I want to show you something. I'm going to have you sign some, but I want your thoughts on this as you're signing this. You just brought this up, and I thought this is a good time to do it. What do you think about when you look at that picture right there?
That picture?
Do you remember where you were and what you were doing when that was the
No,
number one?
I don't. What year is this?
This would have been when Good Vibrations hit. So this would
Oh
have been
wow,
December 10th, 1966.
wow. Well, Good Vibrations was quite the time because it was it, when I went to #1 in Great Britain. We were voted the #1 group in Britain. #2, the Beatles, and 4, the Rolling Stones. 3 was the Walker Brothers, a group from the U.S. Amazing. So it was a high point, our musical high point of our career, I think. Pet Sounds is regarded as a landmark album or anything, but I think Good Vibrations, as far as the success of it and the notoriety and the uniqueness, and it was avant-garde in 1966, and it still is, I think. It's one of the more incredible recordings of that era, or of any era. I mean, and I came up with, I'm picking up good vibrations, she's giving me the excitation. I wrote all the words at the request of my cousin Brian, who did the brilliant track. I mean, that track is just amazing. So,
it still lives up to the sound on the air today when we play it on
yeah.
the radio. So.
Oh, yeah. No, it's immortal.
Thank you for your time.
Oh, you're welcome.
You have lots of fans from
Thank
Minnesota.
you.
We're certainly going to be supporting the book.
Thank you.
This is Mike Love.